Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to discuss Philip K. Dick's novel Solar Lottery. Let me tell you, after that Asimov debacle, this was a true palate cleanser. What a relief to read this book. Solar Lottery was Philip K. Dick's first published novel set in the year 2203 in a future solar system ruled by chance, or at least by the appearance of chance. Society is organized around a gigantic televised lottery that chooses both the Quizmaster, which is the supreme political leader, and an assassin whose mission is to kill him. Through the story of Ted Bentley, a low-level technician who becomes entangled in a power struggle between outgoing Quizmaster Rhys Ferrick and his successor Leon Cartwright, Dick explores how randomness, technology and ideology can be used to control a population while preserving the illusion of freedom. In this review, we will examine how Solar Lottery uses the motif of random rule to critique both technocratic governance and mass media, while also introducing Dick's recurring concern that the system we live in is rigged and that the reality it presents to us is not quite real. Also, a little caveat, I do have a 10-week-old Airedale Terrier here with me, so there might be disturbances. Sorry for that in advance. The central conceit of Solar Lottery is the Minimax political system, inspired by game theory and the Heisenberg principle of uncertainty. The leader of the world government, the Quizmaster, is selected via a complex computerized lottery. In theory, everybody has an equal chance of being elevated to the top of the hierarchy. The key elements of this world are a system of randomized leadership, institutionalized assassination, and the pervasive influence of telepaths and corporate power. Public office is obtained by lottery rather than birth, wealth, or votes, so authority is formally grounded in chance. At the same time, an assassin is also supposedly chosen at random and given a legal mandate to kill the Quizmaster, so that surviving assassination attempts becomes a kind of public performance of legitimacy. The Quizmaster is protected by telepaths or teeps, while huge corporations and rival factions like Varric's battle for control behind the scenes, ensuring that even a system ostensibly based on randomness is still shaped by hidden power. On the surface, this book looks like a radical meritocracy of chance. Everybody lives under the same rules and shares the same probabilities. But Dick quickly undermines the ideal. Access to technology, information, and violence is unequally distributed. The lottery can be rigged. Moneyed interests exert hidden pressure. What appears to be objective randomness functions as a mask for deeply non-random power relations. So from the beginning, Solar Lottery presents a world where ideology operates through numbers and algorithms. If the computer chooses, no one is responsible. This anticipates today's debate about algorithmic governance and neutral systems that are anything but neutral. Ted Bentley, the protagonist, is not a typical hero, but an ordinary, slightly frustrated biochemist who has just lost his job. He isn't an idealist or a revolutionary, he's just trying to survive in a world where status is tied to being the serf of a powerful protector. Ordinary people who swear a fealty oath to a more powerful person, those are serfs. In the world PKD paints here, serfs and protectors are basically PKD's cyberpunk-flavored version of medieval vassals and lords, wired into a corporate game theoretic future. Protectors are higher status individuals, often tied to big corporations or political figures, who collect networks of serfs. They're supposed to offer protection, patronage, and economic security in return for absolute loyalty. When the protagonist, Bentley, signs on with Varick, the outgoing Quizmaster, plotting to regain power, he's basically looking for security and status, only dimly aware of the scope of Varick's conspiracy and being shuffled around as a pawn in a much larger game. Through Bentley, Dick explores how individuals attempt to be rational actors in an irrational system. Bentley tries to make good choices. He calculates odds, evaluates alliances, and negotiates contracts. Yet every time he thinks he has a grip on the situation, he discovers another layer of manipulation. This creates a persistent theme of epistemic instability. Bentley never has enough information to know whether his actions are meaningful or simply pre-scripted by forces he can't see. That tension between personal agency and hidden structures of control will become a hallmark of Dick's later protagonists in his later work. One of the most interesting aspects of Solar Lottery is that random rule is explicitly sold as fairer than traditional politics. If we let probability decide, then nobody can claim bias. Everybody has a chance. The novel only presents this logic to then slowly demolish it. In the book's universe, the population accepts the lottery system because it promises equal opportunity. The spectacle of the televised assassination attempts reinforces the feeling that the system works and that danger is fairly distributed. But Dick shows three things. First, that corporations and factions can influence outcomes. Second, that telepaths, elite security, and secret technologies protect some players better than others. And third, information asymmetry means that some actors can play the lottery while others are purely at its mercy. In other words, randomness becomes an excuse, a kind of ideological shield. If something bad happens to you, it's just bad luck, not the system's fault. The Minimax framework, drawn loosely from Cold War military strategy, encourages people to think in terms of optimization and risk rather than ethics. As a result, relationships become strategic alliances instead of genuine bonds. Killing the Quizmaster is framed as just one move in a rational game, and human beings are treated as mere variables in an equation. Dick's early suspicion of technocratic rationality is clear here. When you reduce politics to probability and games, you risk justifying almost anything as optimal. That concern will resurface more famously in later works like The Man in the High Castle and Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, where morally horrifying systems present themselves as natural or inevitable. Now, I have a short but powerful excerpt from this book. It is quoting the protagonist Bentley, who at one point voices his frustration with the system and his situation in it. It is quite topical in that it mirrors our current malaise and the futility of our own post-capitalist world. So Bentley says, "I'm a sick man, and the more I see, the sicker I get. I'm so sick I think everybody else is sick and I'm the only healthy person." That's pretty bad off, isn't it? "Yes," Eleanor said breathlessly. And then Bentley continues, "I'd like to pull this whole thing down with a big loud crash. But I don't have to, it's collapsing by itself. Everything is thin and empty and metallic. Games, lotteries, a bright kid's toy. All that holds it together is the oath. Positions for sale, cynicism, luxury and poverty, indifference. Noisy TV sets shrilling away. A man goes out to murder another man and everybody claps their hands and watches. What do we believe in? What do we have? Brilliant criminals working for powerful criminals. Loyalty we swear away to plastic busts. The assassination attempts against the Quizmaster are broadcast and consumed as entertainment, with the public watching as if it's a sport and turning questions of life and death into a game show. In this setup, politics becomes spectacle. Citizens are more emotionally invested in the drama of who lives and dies than in the underlying structure that govern their lives. At the same time, repeated assassination attempts produce a steady desensitization to violence, reducing each new attack to just another episode in an ongoing series. This spectacle also helps manufacture consent, because as long as the system delivers excitement and the impression of fairness, people are less likely to question its foundations. Even though Solar Lottery predates modern reality TV and social media by decades, it feels uncannily prescient about the way political violence can be packaged and sold as content. And Dick suggests that spectacle itself is a tool of control, distracting people from the rigged architecture of it all. Parallel to the political intrigue runs a more cosmic storyline in which Leon Cartwright's followers travel to the edges of the solar system in search of John Preston, a quasi-mythical figure believed to be alive on the mysterious 10th planet. This subplot introduces religious and metaphysical themes. Preston functions almost like a prophet or messiah whose continued existence would overturn accepted reality, and the search for him resembles a spiritual pilgrimage. It also sets up a contrast between two ways of dealing with uncertainty. The lottery system tries to domesticate it with math and probability, while the Preston quest embraces mystery, faith, and the possibility that reality is stranger than it appears. At the same time, it hints at Dick's later obsession with hidden realities, suggesting that there may be a deeper truth behind the official story and that a small group pursues this truth while the rest of society remains distracted, a pattern that foreshadows novels like Ubik and Valis. Solar Lottery is both a fast-paced, mid-century science fiction novel and an early laboratory for Philip K. Dick's great obsessions. By imagining a society governed by a lottery that claims to be perfectly fair, Dick exposes how systems of power can hide behind numbers, algorithms, and spectacle, and how individuals like Ted Bentley struggle to find genuine agency within them. The book's depiction of randomized leadership, televised assassination, and game-theoretic politics anticipates contemporary anxieties about algorithmic governance, media-driven politics, and the feeling that our quote-unquote choices are carefully structured by forces that we don't see. I found this book fantastic, even though the novel tends to dwindle away at the end a little bit, but I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 Macmillans. To me, Dick's books are both time capsules and oracles. Whatever book I read at the time seems to point me to what is currently happening in our time. With this one, it is the current unraveling of our institutions, the power elites turning against one another, and the dirty underbelly becoming visible for us all to see. That's it for today. If you liked this review, please give it a thumbs up. And I'm probably not going to be able to produce as much content as so far, so please have a look at the short section. Every once in a while I'll be posting puppy videos over there instead. Thank you so much. Bye bye.